Welcome to the first episode of Ever Roaming. My name's Rochelle, my trail name is Hummingbird, and I will go into that later. I wanted to introduce you to what we're going to be talking about on this channel. Just a little background of where I'm coming from. About a year ago, I decided to start section hiking the PCT. When I started researching that, I realized that there was not a lot out there on how to do section hiking. There are some really great channels out there like Dixie at Homemade Wanderlust and Darwin on the Trail, which I started watching and actually was cheering Dixie along, she didn't know, through YouTube when she completed her Triple Crown. And their channels are really great if you're a thru hiker or if you're looking for equipment reviews, or even she has a great section on her channel about like how to get started as a backpacker. What I realized in all my research is I could not find something on how to section hike the PCT. So that is what I'm going to focus on initially in this channel, and eventually that will grow and change and be some other things as well. There are a lot of trails across this country. Short trails, long trails, international trails. So what I really want to focus on right now though is the PCT and how to section hike it, because it's a lot of logistics. One of the reasons that I decided that I wanted to start section hiking is that I'm a nurse. I work several days a week, 3 to 4 days a week, 12-hour shifts. I also have a lot of other commitments that I take care of. And most people who work in a full-time job, like a 40-hour week, can't get out there for 5 or 6 months. So how do you tackle something like a 2,650-mile trail called the PCT? So that's why I decided to do section hiking. Through hiker, when they plan their hike, they go on to the PCTA, they get a permit, and they're going to plan the whole hike all the way through. And they're going to figure out in the time that they're preparing for that, like where they're going to send their supply boxes, where they're going to get off trail and maybe have a zero or a town they want to stop in. They're going to kind of scope out how that 5 or 6 months of time is going to go. But as a section hiker, it's a bit more complicated than that. You have to figure out a lot of logistics, and I didn't realize that this was a big deal until I was talking to a few people that I had met on trail who were thru hikers. When you thru hike, you have that 5 or 6 months, and yeah, you have sort of an idea of where you want to be kind of pacing yourself over time. But when you section hike, you have to think about, so I have X number of days and I need to do X number of miles, and you have to plan ahead to make sure that you're going to make that time, that you're capable of making that time in that distance. And that's something I'll talk about in some of my videos, is like the challenges that I have already run into when I was in the Sierra. But making that distance and that time to make it to your extraction point. So you have 5 days, you start in point A, and you know you're going to try to do X amount of miles per day, on top of planning everything you need for that time. And that you're going to be at that point where somebody's going to pick you up or you're going to have a car waiting for you. Section hiking the PCT requires a lot of research and a lot of logistics. You have to think about a multitude of things. And some of those things include the right season to do the right section, the right equipment to do that section, and then most importantly, your loved ones who are going to have to drop you off and pick you up in the middle of their work week sometimes, and how you're going to do that. Like, how are you going to get to the trail and how are you going to get off the trail? And sometimes you're very lucky to have your editor / husband who will drive in the middle of nowhere just to pick you up because you're like, I finished early, or I have really bad blisters and I need to get off the trail. There are a lot of logistics involved with section hiking, and like I said earlier, I hadn't realized how much was involved. So I want to share with you through this channel, and like I said, also it's probably going to adapt into other things, how I've gone about doing that. And I'm going to share with you the good, the bad, the challenges, everything in between, to help you who might be the full-time person working, or the person who can get, a week to 4 weeks a year in vacation and wants to go tackle a section. I want to be able to help you achieve that and give you some insight from what I've experienced and how to best do that. My major inspiration was probably when I was in junior high and high school, and we used to go up to the Eastern Sierra like every summer, and we would camp up there. And of course I had my own tent. I saved up my money babysitting and I got my own tent, and I loved being in nature. I found such peace and solitude there, and I remember that peace and solitude. I remember sitting on the side of the lake and like listening to some music in my Walkman, dating myself, and what that felt like, and watching the birds and the whitecaps on the lake and hearing the wind blowing through the pine trees. It sounds like a rushing waterfall. It's beautiful. And then, adult life came and I stopped going out into nature like that. About 4 or 5 years ago, I started a job at a hospital here in Orange County. And I met this amazing woman who inspired me to get back outdoors. I was missing being in the woods. There's something about that peace and solitude, and like any quote from John Muir, it is exactly how my soul feels. It's as if he was writing to me. I was inspired by this coworker. She was an avid, and I shouldn't say was, but is, an avid backpacker, and she loves hiking. And I started talking to her about her adventures and where she's been. And she's a lot like me. She loves to travel the world solo. And so we were talking, and I decided that it was time to get back out into the woods. My life was sort of settling down. I was settling into my new job. And I decided that I wanted to start going hiking. So I got some basic gear and I went out and I was doing some hiking. And then one day I saw a troop of kids going up the hill, obviously with some adults. And they all had backpacking gear. And I was like, are you going to stay the night out here? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool. Like that would be like how to elevate hiking to the next level. Like staying out in the woods overnight, that solitude, looking up, seeing the stars, just experiencing that peace that comes with nature and like being in nature. After one of these hikes in the woods, I came home to my husband/editor a little hyped up and excited. And I said, how would you like to take a class at REI on outdoors and maybe try backpacking with me? I came home and I convinced my husband, like I said, to take this REI class. And we bought a bunch of equipment, and it's not the equipment that I currently use. And there's going to be videos in the future where I'm going to go over equipment choices, and some of the mistakes I made in the beginning, and then not necessarily mistakes, but just choices I've made to try to streamline and lighten my load. We bought a bunch of gear, and we decided, because he, growing up, did not do a lot of camping, or certainly had never backpacked, I said, okay, so why don't we try all the gear in the backyard first, see how you feel about it before we go out in nature. We did. It happened to be one of the coldest nights in Southern California for that winter. It was about 38 degrees. And I know for you East Coast people and northern people, that's nothing. But for Southern California people, that is freezing. We made it through the night, and we really enjoyed it. And we decided that we were going to actually try our first backpacking trip. Now, that was in the winter. Come May, hoping that it wouldn't be hot, because we have something here called May Gray and June Gloom, we decided to pack up our packs and go up into one of the local state parks that has some backcountry backpacking. And you can go up there, and it's maybe like 3-ish miles. We figured, okay, if we get into some trouble, easy out. If we don't like it, we decide we can go back to the car and we can leave. We go up this hill. It was a huge struggle. We probably brought way more than we should have ever brought with us. But we both loved it. I really loved it. Probably more than he did. I don't know. After that one night up there on top of Crystal Cove, I decided that this is something that I wanted to continue to pursue. And I was talking to a coworker at work, a different coworker, and she was a backpacker. And she invited me along on the Trans-Catalina Trail. So there is a almost 40-ish mile trail over on the island of Catalina that is really challenging. There were people who hiked that trail who said that it was really hard, and they had done PCT hiking. So I survived the first half of it one year, and then later that year we finished the other half. But after I had done the first half, that summer I decided that I wanted to do my first solo trip. First, actually, let me go back. I started car camping first in a few of the national parks and going on hikes. So I would car camp near the national park or a place that I wanted to visit, like PAIGE, Arizona, going through Zion, stopping at the Grand Canyon. And then I decided to actually go on my first backpacking trip alone. So I went to the Redwoods National Park. To be honest, I was terrified my first time. So I went to this trail and it goes down maybe a mile, mile and a half. It was on a riverbed and you had to go so far up the riverbed before you were allowed to camp. And there were bears. I didn't see any, thank God. Although I grew up seeing bears in the Eastern Sierra, but it's still a little unnerving to run into one in nature because you never know how they're going to behave. They're a wild animal, and honestly, you don't know what they could do to you. So I went down the trail. I stayed at the marker. I found a spot right at the marker of like the minimum line that I was allowed to camp within that trailhead, because I figured if something went wrong, it was just over a mile back up this hill and to my car. So I did it. I loved it. I was so loving the peace and the solitude. And a lot of my friends say, like, don't you feel unsafe out there? How do you feel safe being a single woman, a solo woman hiker out there? And I love it. I have always felt completely safe out there as far as being a solo woman hiker. And that's something I'll talk about in later videos because I'm sure people have a lot of questions about that, as I did when I started out. And I'll talk about what tramilies are and like the camaraderie and what trail magic is. We'll talk some more about trail angels and how to hook up with them during the hiker season to get rides and assistance with things. There's certain ones that will do that, and some just are there giving their time along the trail. But we'll go into that in other videos. So I had that first experience by myself in the Redwoods National Park, and it was so incredible. And the next day I hiked down to another place there through this beautiful fern canyon and out to the beach, where I went to a hiker and biker backpacking site. So you either had to ride a bike in or you had to hike in, and it was stunning and beautiful, and I was so obsessed. So I started hiking all over and backpacking all over different places in California. I even drove my husband through Lassen Park with me. And I started kind of running out of places to go, like, that seemed obvious. Like, I used up a lot of them, and of the ones that I knew that I wanted to do. And so I was standing in Lassen Park one day, where we had gone out to this beautiful lake. And I'm standing there, and I realized that the sign in front of me is pointing to these different lakes, and it's also pointing to the PCT. And it was that moment, as I turned onto the PCT, and then had to step aside, because some thru hikers went by me. And they had the lightest little small packs, and they just didn't seem to have a care in the world. And I stood there on the PCT, and I watched them walk by me, and I realized, oh my God, I could hike on this trail. I can't take 5 or 6 months off from my job, but I stood there and I thought, how could I do this? So I figured there had to be a way to do like pieces of it, because here I walked in from Lassen Park and I'm standing on a piece of it. And I have been other places throughout California, and I've seen signs that like point, like it's over here. So I grew up knowing that the PCT was there. I knew that it was cut through in the Eastern Sierra, where I would go hiking in the summers when I was a kid. I don't know if I actually ever stood on it. I don't think I ever went that far up, but I was aware of it, and I had never really thought about doing it. I mean, that seemed like the most extreme of people who are willing to really like push the limits would be out there. And when I saw these people walk by, I realized these are normal, average people. And then I watched Dixie from Homemade Wanderlust a couple years ago. I watched her do it, and I cheered her on for her Triple Crown through YouTube. And I thought, you know what, I can do this, and I'm going to do it in sections. So I hope to share that experience with you. The good, the bad, the challenges. Sometimes, as some of them say, you have to embrace the suck. You know, every day isn't a perfect day out there, but it is just absolutely incredible, and it is life-changing. As I said earlier, my goal through this channel is to help the person who's working the 40-hour week or has the sort of patchy schedule, the person who literally can't leave their job for 5 or 6 months, wish I could. I wish I had that luxury. But wants to at least section hike the PCT. And maybe you won't hike the entire PCT. I don't even know exactly if that's what's going to happen with me yet. That is my goal. But I wanted to create this channel, like I said earlier, for you, to help you, because there is so much involved in figuring out how to do that. And I'm going to highlight different sections as I go. I've already been out this year for the last, I don't know, what, 6 months? About 6 months, and I've hit up a few sections, including some incredible spots in the Sierras. And my goal is to share that with you. And this channel is going to evolve and change based on your comments and your interests. It's going to be, like I said, focusing on me section hiking the PCT at this point, but I definitely want to hear back from you, the viewer, what you're interested in, and any tips or pointers that you want to know, or anything that I can help you with. There's going to be obviously gear reviews, there's going to be how I've adapted by section, because certain sections, whether it's the desert, it's the Sierras, or it's Northern California, depending on the time of year, like, or Oregon or Washington or any of those, the different types of equipment that you're going to need and how you need to plan for that. And I'm going to be sharing so much as I go along, and what I've learned, and what I've learned about myself on this trail. It is life-changing, and in this short amount of time that I've been out there, I've already seen so much in myself that's changed, and so much that I've had the opportunity to enjoy, and that I've brought back into my life. And I want to be able to share that with you. So if you're interested in finding out more, I would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel. And we're going to try to keep our postings pretty regular. We're just getting started, so please bear with us if sometimes the uploads are a little spotty and maybe not every single week, or however we plan to do it. I don't know the timing yet. But I really hope that you'll join us and enjoy this journey with me. Thanks for watching.